Today we're looking at notes 5-6, solve quadratics by factoring. So we are going to find the solution or solutions by factoring today. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is this word here. So remember, this solution or solutions, finding the solutions, is another way to say x-intercepts, zeros, or roots. All four of those words essentially mean the same thing. So when we find the solution or solutions of a quadratic, remember, we're really finding the x-intercept graphically. So to find an x-intercept, the first thing you're going to do is plug in 0 where you see y. So 0 equals x squared plus 5x plus 4. And then remember, we are factoring. So when I think about factoring this quadratic, the first thing I think is GCF lead negative. I don't have a GCF. I don't have a lead negative, so maybe off over here. GCF lead negative first. Okay, I don't have either of those things. So then I go to my T-chart. So then I'm looking for numbers that multiply to A times C. Remember, it's 1 times 4, so A times C would be 4. And add to B, so 5. So numbers that multiply to 4 are either 1 and 4 or 2 and 2. And of course, this is the set that's going to work, 1 and 4. So remember, since my A value is 1, I do not have to group. You can if you want. I'll never say, oh, you can't. You can always group 100% of the time. But in this case, since the A is 1, I'm not going to group. I'm going to take the kind of lazy way. And I know that the numbers from the chart are going to help me with my factors. So my factors will be x plus 1 and x plus 4. Okay, so now that I've got my factors, I want to slide this in here. So this is not something you need to write down, but it's something we're going to talk about. It's called the zero product property. So there's this thing called the zero product property in math that states if A times B equals 0, then either A equals 0 or B equals 0. Y'all, that makes sense. The only way two numbers can multiply to 0 is if one or both of them is 0. So in this case, we have two factors that are multiplied by each other to equal 0. Okay, so either of these factors equaling 0 would make this whole thing multiply to 0. Because remember, 0 times 100 is 0, 0 times negative 5 is 0, 0 times anything is 0. So we're going to use this zero product property to help us solve. So we're going to do exactly what it says, and off to the side we're going to say, well, this problem will work if either x plus 1 equals 0 or if x plus 4 equals 0. If either of those factors equals 0, then we will get a solution of 0 here. So then once we set each of these factors equal to 0, we will solve. So of course, minus 1, minus 1. So we get x equals negative 1, minus 4, minus 4. Or we get x equals negative 4. Now, since the direction said find the solutions, it didn't say find the x-intercepts, we can leave our answers as is. This is perfectly fine. I'm going to circle it to leave your answers as is. Now, had the directions stated find the x-intercepts, I probably would have written my answer as ordered pairs because an x-intercept is an ordered pair. But in this case, when it asks for solutions or if it asks for zeros or roots, you would be okay to leave it in the x equals format. Okay, so now let's move on to number 2. Number 2, y equals 2x squared plus x minus 10. Okay, so of course you're finding solutions, which really means you're finding zeros. So our x-intercepts, plug in 0 for y. And then you're going to look for that GCF or lead negative first. Don't have a GCF. Don't have a lead negative. So then I'm going to my T-chart. So multiply to what? Add to what? So remember, A times C. So A is 2, C is negative 10, so negative 20. Hopefully everybody can see the negative. Multiply to negative 20. Add to this B value. The B value is 1. Add to 1. So what numbers multiply to 20? Well, 1 and 20, 2 and 10, not 3, but yes, 4 and 5, and that takes me back around in this loop. How will this work to where I'll multiply to a negative 20 but add to a positive 1? Well, that's going to be 4 and 5, but the 4 will be negative. So this is our set that's going to work. Now, A is not 1. Unfortunately, that means you must group. So we're going to drag down the 0 equals. Okay, we're going to always drag down the first, 2x squared. Always drag down the last. We're going to replace the middle with the 2 from the chart. So negative 4x and positive 5x. This is really bothering me, all that dot looks like. I'm not sure what it looks like. Multiply to negative 20. There we go. Add to 1. There we go. Much better. Okay, so now we're going to group. We have an even number of terms we can group. First set of 2 terms here, we can take out 2x. That would leave us with x minus 2. This set of 2 terms, we're gonna take out a positive 5. So that would be x minus 2. Oh, look at that. With this term and this term, I have the matching factor of x minus 2. So x minus 2 will factor out, and 2x plus 5 is what we have left when we factor out x minus 2. So we'll use that 0 product property, set x minus 2 equal to 0, and set 2x plus 5 equal to 0. Okay, so now we've got x equals 2. And on this, minus 5, so 2x equals negative 5. So x would equal negative 5 halves, of course. So these are my 2 solutions. All right, so I hate to get a whole new piece of paper, but I think it's probably necessary. I don't think we're going to have enough space. So on number 3, we've got y equals 6x squared plus 9x. Alrighty, so here, first step, we're going to plug in 0. For y, we've got 6x squared plus 9x. Alright, so now, remember, as I slide down number 1, GCF lead negative first. Don't forget. So here we have a GCF. We don't have a lead negative. We can factor out 3x from both terms. Okay, when I factor out 3x from this term, I get 2x. When I factor out 3x from this term, I get 3. So remember, check yourself. Does this distribute back? That distributes back to that. Oh, yes, that distributes back to that. Look, you have 2 linear factors. This factor is no longer x squared. So when you've got those 2 linear factors, you're done. And this is the same as before. You could use this 0 product property. You've got 2 factors multiplied. I know we don't really write the parentheses around this to show that this is multiplied, but it's implied. There's parentheses here, it's implied. So you're going to say 3x equals 0 or 2x plus 3 equals 0. Okay, so then you're going to divide by 3, divide by 3. Oh, what do you know? When you divide 0 by 3, you still get 0. Here, you're going to subtract 3 both sides. Then you're going to divide by 2. You get negative 3 halves. So your 2 solutions are as follows. All right, last problem, number 4. Number 4. It's a funky looking number 4. All right, we'll fix that. Okay, so again, when we're solving, we are finding x-intercepts. That means you plug in 0 where you see y. Okay, so I've got 2x squared plus 6x equals negative 4 plus 0. Plug in 0 where I see y. Okay, of course, negative 4 plus 0 is -4. Okay, we've got this quadratic that we're trying to solve here, but we don't have all the terms on one side of the equal sign, so you need to fix that. I don't care which side of the equal sign you get it on, you just need to get it all on the same side. So in this case, because we've already got the a and the b, the ax squared plus bx over here on the left, we're just going to go ahead and pick up this -4 and move it across the equal sign. And of course, anytime you move across the equal sign, the sign changes. So this will become +4 now equals 0. Okay, again, what do you always look for first? GCF, lead negative. So you factor out this GCF of 2. You've got x squared plus 3x plus 2 and equals 0. Okay, and then of course we're going to break it up into 2 more factors. Here we're ignoring the GCF. Our a value is 1. When we come over to the side to do our t-chart, multiply add chart, we've got a times c, which would be 2, adds to b, which would be 3. This is an easy one because the only thing that multiplies to 2 is 1 and 2, and of course it adds to 3. Notice my a value is 1, that's why I went straight to 2 factors. I'm not going to use grouping. If you want to, you may, but because that a value is 1, I know the 2 values from the chart are going to help me complete my factors, so x plus 2 and x plus 1. All right, so now you've actually got 3 factors. So you've got 2 set it equal to 0, x plus 1 set it equal to 0, and you've got x plus 2 set it equal to 0. Here, that's not even a true statement. That tells us nothing. Tells us nothing. There's no solution that comes from that. Nothing comes of that. It's not even a true statement. Notice the only time you're going to get a solution is when one of your factors has a variable in it. If your factor doesn't have a variable, then it tells you nothing. Okay, so my only 2 solutions are x equals -1 and x equals -2. When you went back up here, this factor was very different. It had a variable in it, correct? It had x. So when you solved this factor, you divided both sides by 3, you got x equals 0. But in this case, this factor doesn't have a variable, so when you set it equal to 0, it's not even a true statement, so you don't get anything out of it. You just get something out of these 2.